we're live. Welcome everybody to the Building Bellingham Pivot Series. Today's focus, I've got some awesome people here, some familiar faces in our community, some people who've been on the show, some people who you just recognize, some people's businesses you recognize. But this is the craft beer world. And this has impacted our situation right now, right? We're in a different world right now. And I've really admired how all of you have adapted and obviously figured out the best way to go forward. There's only one way, and that's forward, right, guys? So,
Right.
So thanks for joining me today. In my screen, Jason, you're up in the upper left corner, and I'm just a counterclockwise guy, I guess you could say. So, would you mind starting off with who you are, what you do, a little bit more about your business?
Yeah, my name is Jason Harper. I own Stemma Brewing Company. We're almost a year old, so we started in June, end of June last year, so about a year. And yeah, we operate a 10-barrel brew house in Bellingham, mostly on premise with some light distribution, and now getting into 16-ounce cans. And yeah, we're a family-run business. It's my wife and I, primary owner-operators, and my mom and dad are involved as well. And we've got a really kind of small, tight-knit crew, which is awesome. Yeah, that's who we are.
And you guys are over right off of Iowa, right kind of by, like you can see the sign right by the freeway overpass as you're driving. Pretty awesome placement of that sign.
Yeah, we have a freeway sign. We're on Iowa and Moore Street. So it was Al's RV for about 20 years, if anyone recognizes that spot. Most recently, it was Hit Fitness. There was a female kickboxer up there on the sign. People will recognize that, but
Hit
we're
Fitness.
right off the freeway, easy to access, and yeah, we're loving it. It's a good location.
And
And
tell
you
us about
replaced
the cat.
the cat.
Oh yeah. We've got the cat logo. That was Stemma's Latin for a family, written family genealogy. So it's the family cat is the story behind that image, and we don't use it all the time, but like true cats, we try to have it pop up here and there.
Yeah, and you guys have cats physically walking around. You have brewery cats.
Brew cat.
Yeah, we have. We don't have any right now, but we have in the past had some cats floating around. They're we love when they're around. They're good, our eco-friendly pest control. So
Keep the mice out. I love it. Evan and Dakota, counterclockwise here. Tell us who you are. You're welcome back, by the way.
Thank you.
Tell us more about who you are, what you do, what your focus is right now.
Yeah, so I'm Evan Pollock, the head of Pollock Pictures and the director and producer of Brewingham, the featured doc here in Bellingham. And to my right.
And I'm Dakota, Huntley, another local film production company, Huntley Motion, and one of the co-producers on the documentary Brewingham.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we've got different perspectives here. We've got two brewers or two brewery owners that are very much ingrained in that world. And then we've got the kind of outside looking in or the inside looking in where you guys just love drinking beer. So, and you also
Amen.
happen to be pretty stunningly fantastic, in the cinematography world, filmmakers.
Yeah.
So different perspective on that.
Yeah, so we produce commercials and documentaries for different businesses. And so when we started doing that, we realized like how much we love drinking craft beer and how much amazing craft beer is in Bellingham. We're like, okay, we got to do a movie on this. So we have definitely a lot more understanding of craft beer, but we are no means like experts. Like we started this live stream, like these live stream beer tasting things, and we taste each one. We're like, we're not, what's the word for it? Connoisseurs, but it's sommelier, but for Cicerone. Yeah, we're by no means Cicerones. We are just like loving craft beer. That's it. And that's why we started doing like little streams of like, yeah, this is good. Moving on. Oh yeah, this one's good too. Moving on.
And having an appreciation for the process.
Beer enthusiasts.
Beer enthusiasts. Yes, indeed.
And Gary Pickering, friend of mine, you've got two big worlds. You've got two big worlds that you run. And I know that we've talked a little bit about sleep starting to maybe become an option. And I always ask you because I know that when you did open 122 West, there was not a lot of sleep. There's a lot of really, really hard work and love and sweat equity that went into creating an amazing brand here locally. But you've got Click Monsters. So you've got two different worlds. But obviously what we want to focus on is 122 West. Tell us a little bit more about you, what you do, your journey. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're probably the newest brewery in town. I think that's open, maybe not, but we rebranded, or we became 122 West in September of last year. So, timing is everything. And then, we were heading in the right direction, and of course COVID hit, and so that's changed everything. But yeah, the brewery's been great experience. A lot of hard work, a lot more work than I anticipated, to be honest with you, but all good. I don't give up, so we're plowing ahead. And I also have Click Monster, which is a digital marketing agency, and we've been at that for nearly 15 years. I also do a lot of finance stuff, and my background is a banker. So I'm pretty fortunate that I have some other skill sets that actually help me with the brewery. And then where I'm weak on the brewery side, which is on a few places, several, I've hired some great staff members to kind of bridge the gap. And so we have a pretty awesome little team over there. Unfortunately, we lost a big chunk of our team due to COVID, but hopefully we'll get to start rebuilding that here pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us. And one thing that I've really admired about all of you and a lot of the people in the craft brewing community, we have such a collaborative community in that, especially in that industry. And tell me a little bit more about what it's been like for you all, and maybe Evan and Dakota. What have you guys been noticing as raving beer fans and being so immersed in that community? What have you all noticed, and how have you felt the community come together collaboratively to ensure that craft breweries stay around, and because it's so ingrained in Bellingham's culture, right?
Yeah. Well, I'll let these guys talk first, since they are actually working in the industry, and then we can kind of speak what we've seen from the outside looking in.
Awesome. Yeah.
Well, I can chime in there a little bit. Mostly the collaboration in the industry is actually very interesting to me, because in Click Monster, while we have some networking groups that pertain to our industry, we're not collaborating a ton with the other agencies in town. On the brewery side, I quickly learned from my brewer that all the brewers and these beer industry folks that have been doing this forever are really well connected, and I'm starting to finally get a little bit more involved in that. It's a very collaborative and supportive industry to be in. I mean, I'll tell you right now, we got a can seamer, and getting 32-ounce cans is extremely difficult right now because the demand for crowlers, and Jason's hooking me up with a half pallet here pretty quick of cans, which is awesome. They're super hard to get, and if I do get them, I pay a premium. So that's kind of one of the things where when anyone needs something, they can kind of hit up the other brewers in town or breweries, and usually we can solve our problems pretty quickly that way. So that's a nice, refreshing part of being in this business versus some of the other businesses I've been in over the years.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jason, for the
Yeah.
Shout out to Jason.
It's a big part of it. It's so cool to see. I mean, we all talk and text and email, and anytime I need something, there's someone in town that can help me. My downfall is planning. So I'm like, oh crud, I need yeast today, or I need grain today. And, I can always find someone that can help me out. And you don't see that in other industries, like you said.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think that from our perspective, that's what kind of set us on this trajectory to make a movie about it, is because there are a lot of industries that do share and a lot more collaborative. But I've seen, when we first started this thing, we noticed that there was such a family and a very family-oriented kind of business mindset. And when people noticed how working together and working with each other and supporting each other and offering free information, offering, if somebody's missing, low on hops, somebody just calls over and says, hey, I need some hops, and people are right there, to help them out.
We heard multiple stories of that.
Yeah.
People just, yeah, sure, you need this.
Exactly. It's like, because then they know it's like if they needed help, that they would reciprocate. And so I think that is a lot of sharing and a lot of giving towards each other, which has been so cool, and to see why, I've heard other stories of other businesses doing something similar, but it's not really, no one's really put their finger on it and said, this is happening and that's why people are thriving. And it's very, very different than the traditional capitalist model of like, you be better than everybody else and step on whoever you can to get there. And for people to see, I want to be better than everyone else, but I want to lift up our community in everything that we're doing. I want to see other people succeed as well. I want to be able to share that. I want to be able to collaborate. I want to be able to lift people up more often. And so when you're seeing that more play out more often, that's when we really noticed that this was a really cool story to tell. And so that's why we love being part of the craft beer scene. It really is such a family.
Yeah, it's definitely not the time to be putting yourself ahead of others. It's definitely a time of equality and helping each other out.
For sure.
Pushing what's important.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, absolutely. We've gotten growler caps from Menace and Wander, and we've gotten other ingredients and bits and pieces that we've needed, and vice versa. And, Rob's really good about reciprocating. And it's, for me, I felt a little guilty asking, like Jason or the guys down the Floods, hey, where'd you get your labels from? I'm looking online at labels. And so, it just was a little awkward because having done my current traditional capitalist businesses or whatever you want to call them for the last 15 years, you get some of that, but it's not the same kind of, open, just much more community oriented communication than, so like I said, it was a little awkward to ask at first, but now it's, I realize it's it's a nice little community and everybody's helping each other out whenever they can. So definitely a pleasant surprise to getting into this business.
Yeah. It's always nervous when you first start out, I bet. I don't know how this game is played. Do I do it? Do I not? Do I stay, it's myself? But I think that the more people interject themselves and communicate and collaborate, the more you are accepted in the family. Like the more that you reach out to people, the more you're like, hey, I want to be a part of this. Hey, how can I help? Hey, can you help me? Like the more people are just there to meet you where you're at, which I think
That's great. And I love it because I have a lot of background in social media and digital marketing and finance. And so now people are, other people in the community are, realizing I have some other skills that, I'm not necessarily the brewer, with 20 years of brewing experience, but certainly I have some other, not just me, but our whole team has other areas that we can help out our fellow breweries in town. It's awesome.
Yeah. How do you do that? So I guess the question is, so much of our world is like, there's a lot going on in our world right now that is based on distrust right now. Distrust of our government, distrust of our medical system, distrust of all of these things. Yet you guys have found a way to lean into trust. And I love that. I mean, it's so inspiring because, and my industry is not a trust industry, right? Just like Gary was saying, it's not. And so, but we've been on this mission to lean into trust. How have you guys as leaders done that? I mean, how do you do that Gary, like coming from a different industry where you're just like, well, all these people they trust each other, but maybe they've just known each other for a while. What's the internal dialogue for you? How did you get to a point as a newer brewery to say, all right, I'm just going to call Jason. I'm just going to trust that he's got his best interest and my best interest in mind. We can go together. How do you do that as a leader?
Yeah, it took a while, to be honest with you, because even coming from banking is very, I'm not collaborating with my competitors when I'm in that finance world. And digital marketing a little bit better, but I don't know. I just, I started meeting people in the industry and they're awesome. And, everybody's been very forthcoming about providing information. And just, I think it set me at ease where it's like, oh, wow. I mean, there's never been any pushback when I've asked for anything. And I've always kind of hesitated because I felt a little awkward, like, ooh, why would he want to tell me who his label supplier is, and it's not the end of the world if they don't, but there was just never any, from anyone I've worked with in any brewing business in Bellingham or even the wider market. It was just, I think it's just how, when you start in that business, or you've been in that business for a while, that's just the mindset that's created. So I think for me, it's probably a little more challenging because I'm, like I said, I wasn't, my mind wasn't trained that way. So, it took a little while to even be comfortable asking, but now it's great. And I love to share information that I can give. My brewer and my team does the same thing. So, and I'd argue that it's actually helped me in my other businesses because now I find myself asking questions in the Bellingham web design group. It's like, I got stuck on something, and before I'd probably just Google it and figure it out, or now I'm just like, ah, screw it, I'm just going to ask, because I'm sure one of the other 100 people in Bellingham that know how to do this can just help me do it. And I, not that, I don't know, that's been interesting. And so, but I have found just by asking in that other industry, I think people are a lot more accommodating and willing to help and be part of a bigger community than you think. And so I think some industries have just in their head that, oh, I'm not going to ask, I'm not going to tell, I'm going to keep everything secret. But for me, I think it's helped not only with the brewery, but it's actually helping me become more open in my other business.
That's awesome,
which is great.
Yeah, and Jason, for somebody, so you've got such a strong local brand. Both of you do. All of you do. Jason, you haven't been around in Bellingham with Stemma for that much longer than 122 West. Yet you figured out a way to say, you know what, I'm going to give to, like, Gary reached out to me. I want to help. How do you do that when you're still in like probably in growth phase? I'm sure you have plans for growth. All of you do. But how do you do it? Like, how do you dig into giving to other people when, say, your place of gathering is shut down? You're trying to figure out ways to get some sales. I know Gary's been doing really awesome deals at 122 West. I know you guys have too at Stemma. How do you lean into giving in a time where you feel like you're in scarcity?
Yeah, I mean, I have the benefit of been in the beer industry for almost 10 years now, 9 years. And so I was in beer distribution before this, and working with, 200 to 300 other breweries. I really got to see this firsthand on just how much the brewing industry collaborated and how much they talked, and just also like how much hospitality the industry has, even from like distributor to brewery. I mean, I would go travel to Portland or California, and I always could reach out to a brewery. Even Maui Brewing, for example, went to Maui and like texted day of, like, hey, I'm in Maui, can you hook me up with a brewery? And like the brewing industry is one of those where it's like, heck yeah, I'm out with my family right now, but I'll meet you there in 20 minutes. Like, it's really funny how that is like just so much part of the culture. And I got to learn it over the last 8 years in distro, that I feel like when we opened, even though sometimes, again, I come from a finance background, so sometimes like in my mind, I'm like, I get stuck with the numbers and the dollars. But, and the reality, like giving someone a case of beer, or like, hosting someone, giving them a tour, giving them an hour of your time, the returns on that are so much more. They're just not as visible as financial dollars. And so, right now is especially the time where we just need to help out. I love my crowler machine. I'm definitely not the first one in town to get one, but I feel like one of the first to really push it. And really it's our only option. We don't do much for the glass growlers, and I've got some opinions against them. No offense to anyone, but I just really, I'm so sorry.
It's on, ding, 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 ding.
We filled 1,700 last month. Come on.
Yeah, that's awesome. But I just love the crowler machine. I think the can is just really good for the beer. And so, with that, I sort of ordered heavy on the cans. And so then now I kind of put out, I'm like, hey, anyone else need some cans? And then, most of us in town now are using a brand of machine called October, and they're overall really great machines, but they've got a couple flaws, and I've sourced some parts to like make them better. And so I've like shared those too. And yeah, it's just, it's super fun. There's, I think there's no reason why we can't all grow. And I think in the industry in general, I think that kind of comes back to where craft started in the late 80s, early 90s, where it was never about competing against each other as craft breweries. It was always about competing against Anheuser-Busch or Miller Coors. It was
the man.
Yeah, it was the little guys against the big guys. And though the little guys are definitely becoming the big guys, there's still there's no reason for us to fight at this point. We still have bigger fish to fry. There's still so much of that puzzle, that pie that is not craft. And so we're all fighting kind of together to get that bigger piece of the pie, I think.
That's
Well,
awesome.
Jason was my inspiration for our October can seamer that we finally got after 5 weeks of waiting. So I tell you, I was because I'd been to Stemma enough times to watch him do the cans, and the day I got that and the first can I seamed, it was like a little kid at Christmas, man. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. So pretty excited to have that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
And Evan, you guys, from an observation perspective, your movie, well, the documentary is about gathering. I think, well, it is about craft beer. I mean, I think we can all agree, and I've talked about this before, that so much of what you do is about gathering, right? Breaking bread, having a glass of wine, a beer, and then you're documenting gathering, but gathering is not happening right now. Tell me more about how that's impacted you as beer fans, you and Dakota as beer fans, and then also let's talk a little bit more about gathering and how important that is in our world.
Yeah, well, I think that the main thing that I've heard from a lot of people, that the reason that they got into craft beer is because it was a gathering experience. It was community oriented. It was all about bringing people together to share something that they can, chat about. That's a lot of reasons behind food and restaurants is it's a gathering place. It's where people can come to share an experience together. And so when you have craft beer into that, craft beer is a lot more specific and intimate. And it's also, it lets people loose a bit, and so I think right now, obviously with our social media being the only way we can connect with people, not for long. It sounds like we're moving into phase 2 pretty soon here. Like, was it June 8th? Has that been moved up to like 50% capacity with people? I'm looking forward to seeing. Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. June 8th,
I think that's
2021. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Did I mention it's 2021?
Oh, just a number there. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Just kidding.
I think for the film aspect, there were a lot of things that obviously had to get postponed or canceled with marketing aspects and also filming. We were supposed to be filming all Bellingham Beer Week. We were supposed to be filming some lifestyle B-roll things. We were supposed to be filming people going through their brew atmosphere regularly, but now everyone's, like, we don't want any more people in our brewery right now. There are some people have kindly declined and said, hey, we're going to wait till things open up and ease up, which is, I totally understand. And, even though we've been, been masked and gloved and everything, people have their own standards that they need to be able to live to, so that they can show respect for their customers as well, who are continuing to pivot and continuing to serve their community. And so it's, without that community aspect, I feel like it's really been rough for all the brewers. It's been rough for not, because that's the reason behind craft beer. It's not meant to be shared alone. It's meant to be shared with people and meant to be shared with community, with friends and family. And so when you don't have that friends and family aspect, it's really rough. And there are a lot of people who, thrive. I asked them, like, hey, what was your favorite craft beer experience? That's been a big question I always ask people in these interviews and everything. And the main response is, it's not really about the craft beer. It's about the people that you're sharing it with. It's always about the people first. And, Ben Bucarelli, who is the previous owner of Menace, he said during an interview, he said, the beer takes a back seat to the people always. It's always about the place, the setting, and how the craft beer it's just like an added bonus of just making that experience so much brighter and so much more, bringing so much more life into that scenario with people and family, with friends. And so it's really, everyone recalls not just taking a craft beer drinking a craft beer by themselves. I think there was like one person that had, a different experience, but like, besides that, it's all about community. And that's why our slogan is crafting a community. It's all about people gathering. And so when we've lost that right now, it's been rough. We haven't been able to share with people our lovely experiences. Now we're trying to do it through the live stream that we're doing with different kind of craft beer styles. But even then, it's still.
Yeah, we may not be able to gather, but since it is a documentary film, it's like, okay, well, this is the current situation. Time to document. So exactly. It's not just like, well, we're just going to stop and wait till this is over. No, this is what the story is now. So now we have to just incorporate it and pivot and follow it and see where it goes. And it's important to discuss the current issues and not just turn a blind eye to it.
Yeah.
Take it head on and address it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Yeah, so what you're talking about is the story that you're telling right now. All of a sudden, you had to tell. It's not like you could keep telling the same story. You have to understand that it's not the same. And one thing that I've really admired about both Gary and Jason and many others in your community is like the minute that this all hit, and something I really admire specifically about you, Gary, is I saw social media, I saw messages, I saw like, here's the menu, here's what's changing, and then Jason's like, we're doing deliveries, we're doing this, we're like, and it's just like, it was like a moment of probably like, holy crap. And then immediate was like, we're moving forward. I want to talk about that characteristic as a business owner and how important that is. Like it's the, ability to adapt. And we're kind of like ramping up. It's kind of like a hockey stick. Exponentially, we're changing and growing, and technology is pushing us faster. Tell me about that experience in that moment where you're like, okay, things are not going to operate the same way. And you have like a fork in the road. You can either lose your shit or you can still lose your shit. But then after you've had a chance to lose your shit as a business owner, your next step is like, all right, action. Tell me more about how you process that. Maybe Gary, if you want to start that off.
And Jason's in the same boat a little bit. We're both newer, and we were quickly becoming more of a live music venue, and our weekend sales were really ramping up. And March was probably what I was going to deem our first kind of cash flow positive month after getting through the Melvin hangover and all the things that we had to deal with there. So for me, it was like, holy shit, things are finally, it's rolling. And then bam, now we're closed and we're laying off 22 people. Holy shit, what do we do? So I had some nights where didn't sleep much and stressed quite a bit. And, we kind of came out of the gate after that, just like, all right, well, what do we need to do here? And, I think the hardest part was letting go of staff. We have a pretty big staff with the restaurant, so it takes a while to build up the staff and get the people that you like and get a nice cohesive team. And then, having to scale back, pretty much immediately in order to, keep things moving forward. For us, it was just adapt. How do we drive business? How do we, improve on things that we weren't really great at? Like, we had no delivery program for food. Arguably, our food's always been good, but it wasn't great, and I wanted it to be great. So we put a new head chef on. Rob, we just discounted our beers. That was twofold. We didn't want to dump any beer, and our primary vehicle for selling beer was in the brew pub, and so we don't distribute hardly anything like a lot of the other breweries because we're pretty young and we're a smaller system. So, our channel for selling beer was to have people come in and sit down and have a pint at a table. Well, that quickly went away. So we discounted our growlers pretty heavily. And I just had the attitude that we're going to pour all the beer we have and we're just going to keep brewing beer. And I think Rob's probably brewed 7 or 8 new beers since the pandemic started.
Whoa.
And we poured out a full batch into growlers, poured. I think some of our more popular hazies went 2.5 weeks, so we went from doing maybe 50 to 100 growlers a month to, I think we did 1,500 in April and 1,730 in May.
Wow.
And so it's, for us, I've just looked at that as, sure, we make less margin on the beer, but there's also, supply and demand, you get the price point right. And we've sold a lot more beer. So we have reached a lot of new guests that never heard of us, right? And now they heard of us because we make great beer. I'll give it's not that our beer is bad or cheap. It's great beer, but it just wasn't. We didn't have the opportunity pre-COVID. It was a slower process getting people in to try the beer. And
you're talking about the audience, right?
Yeah. So by doing the growler fills and making that our primary way to get beer out the door has been hugely popular. And month-over-month growth on beer sales has been awesome. It also gave us a chance to retune the kitchen and fix the things that we didn't like, figure out our delivery program, figure out our food costing a little bit better. We're in the process of changing the POS. We decided we needed a can seamer, which we were a little late to the party there, so we had to wait. But now that we have it, it's awesome. while COVID's been hard on small businesses, I think our attitude's been super positive, and we've taken every advantage to use the current situation to improve our operation, and it's been good. Granted, don't get me wrong, I want to get people in there drinking beer and rebuild that community, and have my friends sitting at tables sipping a pint, but this is the next best thing until that happens.
Yeah, I'd argue that you even grew your community more. Like you said, there are people that have never even seen or heard of you. Like, oh, you guys are back. You guys are different. I've never even heard of 122. And like you said, you went from 150 to, nearly 10 times that. And so
that's right.
Yeah, and that's incredible. I mean, like, I think what you guys have been doing as far as just like, well, we're just going to be slinging beer for affordable and great craft beer. Because I mean, like, what your 50% off growlers literally like is been slinging beer left and right, which is so cool. And I enjoy it so much because it's not only like, great craft beer, but it's at, really a great entry price and being able to, get people in the door, and then people are coming back and more and more and more. And so it's just like you've grown your audience
massively.
Just being able to do that, which is so cool. Now you've got, an audience for life.
We've almost tripled our Instagram following. We're up to like 2,600 now. Social media has been great. And it's brought a lot of exposure to our food too. So you come in, you fill the growler, you got a food menu, and you guys have food. Yep. So selling lots of food, tuning it up. But so it's been, I don't feel guilty, but I talk to people about this, and I'm like, yeah, the brewery's actually doing really, really well compared. We were getting there, but this has created opportunity for us to really grow our market. And I going into COVID, I didn't think this was an opportunity to grow our market, and we have. And of those, if we're doing 1,500 plus growlers a month, these are a lot of new people that haven't been in, and now they're coming in. We're seeing them as repeat customers. It's been good. So hopefully, I'm pretty confident that once we can open and have guests in there, because we seat 200, we're a big building. So, I'm pretty confident that and hopeful that a lot of these people will come back in and be able to enjoy the brewery, the way it was meant to be.
Yeah.
Sit down and have fun.
Gary, there's also been some pretty amazingly supportive. I don't know if this is a human or a bear that's been delivering beer as well, but for my wife's birthday, Boozy Bear picked up some booze and dropped it off to us. Tell me a little bit more about Boozy Bear and what Boozy Bear does, because I saw Boozy's on here right now, actually watching. So
Boozy Bear. Boozy Bear is a great supporter of 122 West, and so Boozy Bear delivers treats, including beer and other spirits to people around Bellingham. You can go to their webpage and nominate people that you want to get the boozy treat. So that's been great. So we are lucky to see Boozy Bear a few times a week, sampling our beers and delivering them out to the community. I see there's some other places getting involved, and so it's great. So Boozy's getting funded with a lot of donations, and I am amazed at how popular Boozy's become, and a great little story for the the current environment in Bellingham and Whatcom County. So
not a bad dancer either, by the way.
That
Boozy's not a bad dancer either. I watched
not a bad dancer either. So so hop on Boozy's page. It's not just 122. I saw Fringe had given some beer to Boozy, so Boozy is accepting of all beer and gifts that they can deliver throughout the community. So check out their page on Facebook. Just look for Boozy Bear.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Jason, for you, I saw a really quick reaction, or I would say, I want to use the word proaction because I like proactivity better than reactivity. You immediately, almost like, well, I don't know. Obviously, there's maybe a sleepless night or two in between, but this all happens, and then immediately was like, all right, Stemma's ready for delivering beers. Here's how we're going to go forward. It was a really quick action. Tell me about your processing and how that really played out for you.
Yeah, I think we got word March 16th was the sort of, hey, we're needing to shut everything down. The writing was on the wall, I think, on the 15th. And so basically March 16th, we had one of our bartenders working, and then I called everyone up and furloughed my whole staff that day. and came to work Tuesday. Well, I stayed up like all night Monday and built out our online ordering system. And then I opened Tuesday by myself with an online ordering system. And it was one of those things where like we just had no idea. Like at that point, I think I was like, oh, this is going to last a week and we're going to reopen up. I was just super naive at just the state of the world at that time. And so me, like, I definitely react under pressure fairly well, but it's typically the way I react is just like, well, what do I know? Okay, I know that our business could be totally shut down. And so I just need to like, I can run the bar. Let's figure this out. I later had to kind of go back and apologize to my staff and just be like, hey, I didn't mean to like, I love you guys and I want you on. I didn't mean to just like, well, you guys are, push you to the side because that wasn't my intention. It was just more me trying to process and react. But we were able to, I ran the bar by myself for essentially 6 weeks and I kept in really close contact with our bartenders, and I'm lucky we only have 5 people on payroll. So our staff is small. And then I just kind of kept making updates to our online ordering system. And then I got lucky to get on to the kind of first round of payroll loans. And so sometime in April or beginning of June, I brought on back my whole staff, and that's when we added delivery. And we've just been figuring out ways to kind of to adjust to the current climate. And then 16-ounce cans, I was lucky enough to already have started the conversation on those. We were planning to do a fresh hop release in like September. And so I'd already started talking with mobile canners. I'd already started talking with label and design. And so, I kind of took inventory on March 16th and saw that I had 3 beers that were at the perfect stage to go into cans. And so I pulled up some favors and I got 3 can designs done in 48 hours.
Woo!
A label company, and we had a mobile canner there 2 weeks later. And so I feel like we got pretty lucky to get onto those cans really fast. But yeah, it's just all about like changing. And I mean, I'm a fairly bad planner in general, so I like to act on my feet. But even now, I mean, it's almost an advantage because there's no reason to plan. Like every day is a new day. And we're just trying to figure out, what tomorrow looks like. I mean, there's a chance we might be in phase 2 tomorrow. And if that's the case, then we're going to open our tap room and start selling pints. I mean, but we just don't know. So it's just, we're taking it day by day, having a lot of fun while we do it.
For the record, just for people watching, what is when you're not backed against a wall, when you're not coming up on the edge of a cliff, how long does it normally take you to, and this is a question for all of you, to create, like have a beer ready? How long does that take to create a new beer from day one to that point, create a can that's designed beautifully like you all do, and then get into production? What is the normal timeline for that?
Well, I mean, a beer, an ale for us normally takes like 2 to 3 weeks of just from brew day to either cans or kegs. Luckily, there's some flexibility in that. So like we sat on, the beers in tanks a little longer as we waited for mobile canners to come. But I would say as far as like label and design goes, ideally, a month, if not 2 months. It kind of just depends on how big of a, if it's a core lineup, it's kind of nice to really sit down and figure out what that design's going to look like and how it's going to shift to be a bigger picture. I think for us, luckily we'd been thinking about it, but we just kind of put it out there, and it was a very like, we didn't do any back and forth. We said, hey, this is roughly what we want. And if you can turn it out to us in 2 days, then great. And we just looked at it and we said, looks great. We sent it to the printer. So there wasn't as much feedback phase that I think would be ideal. But we already had a really great relationship with our design company. So they already had a good idea of what we were going to like, which was great. but yeah, I mean, I would say normally that would probably take 2 months, and we did it in like a week, basically.
It's an interesting concept too, right? Because have you guys ever heard, like, when you're allotted, like, say typically you have an 8-hour day to get stuff done, and let's say you put all of that into 1 hour. You have 1 hour, you have no choice, get it done. We tend to get things done, or we tend to make change, or tend to act more efficiently when we don't have a choice. And it's so weird that, I mean, it's not weird. It's kind of expected with the human race that in moments like this, when we don't have a choice and our precious lives are, on the line, we make changes that are really impactful. Tell me more about, Evan, if you want to, and Dakota, if you want to jump into this, what's your perception of how amazingly talented and capable our society and our community is when we have no choice?
Yeah. Well, it's, I think we were talking about this, like, because obviously a lot of our jobs and a lot of our upcoming gigs got canceled or postponed or so on and so forth. It's like, well, here's an opportunity. You can't look at the bad, because the bad will always be there. There's always bad in it. But you have to look at what opportunities lie within that. It's like, okay, this is the hand you're dealt. What are you going to do with it? How are you going to, like you said, pivot your business? How are you going to shift around? As a business owner, you don't have any other choice other than to pursue, progress. You only have the option to progress. And so it's like, well, how are we going to progress? And you start asking people, like, hey, you start reaching out to your community, you start coming up with new ideas, you start getting creative. You're pushed into a corner, and you start finding creative ways of getting out of that corner. And it starts, developing, different channels. Like, we started, like, okay, not only are we pivoting our story with Brewingham and introducing, like, elements of how COVID's affected local business and how it's, how it's shut down people, and how people are starting to turn that on its head with Boundary Bay and their drive-through. That was so awesome to see, like, them continuing to party safely and be able to have that ability, have that community draw around them, because they have such a big community. It's awesome to see how people are like, we're right on board with you. We're going to pivot with you. And so I think that as long as you continue to feed into the community and feed ways in which we're changing, people are going to be on board with you, because you're adapting and continuing to see positive, and people want to see positive. So I think that if you continue to feed, say, hey, here's how we're changing, like, rather than saying, hey, we're done, we're this sucks and let's get out of here kind of deal. It's more so an opportunity. And I think people will recognize the fact that you are changing, you are pivoting, and people want you to succeed. And so people are going to try to, to support you in that, as long as you try to continue to serve them.
Yeah. At the end of the day, we're very privileged to be able to do what we do and continue to do what we do, especially in times like this.
Yeah.
Both, with COVID and socially and stuff. So and something you touched on earlier, Gary, about the importance of asking questions. This is a great time to be asking questions on social media and putting it out there and gaining perspective and gaining information and seeing what's important. And for us, documenting that, putting, our lenses up so people can project their voices and getting out important messages and, spreading education and gaining perspective and, acknowledging that.
Exactly. And I think with Stemma, I was there when you guys started doing your first canning line, and it's just like, well, we've never done this before. We literally put this out design. We had it within, 24, 48 hours. We literally got it approved. I think it's acting fast, and, you are put into a position where you have to act fast. There is no time to, like, sit on the design. What if we move this line up? What if we move the logo? It's like, no, we got to get it out the door. We have to trust people are, putting their best foot forward. There is a little bit of back and forth to make sure it's, it's the right approach, but at the same time, it's like you have to step on the gas and start moving forward, and be able to, if you sit on something too long, it then just becomes stagnant, or you've missed your opportunity. So I think that with you guys, just, step on the gas, like, all right, we're going to move forward with canning. Let's get this thing. Let's just put all our forces into this and start, getting this 2-month process narrowed down to a week. I mean, that's pretty impressive. And then with Gary, with you guys saying, okay, well, we still need to sling beer. Let's do the 50% off growlers. And then you guys both accelerated. I mean, Stemma, you guys sold out of your cans super quick. And then, Gary, you guys have been doing growler sales like crazy. It's the way you guys are pivoting. And, with us, like we're, doing our live craft beer series. We're picking up different craft beers, doing that live stream, and it's fun. It's different. It's definitely something we've never done before. And it's forced us to consider things that we've never considered before. And I think that's honestly the best way to do things, is that to consider things that you've never considered before. So
You do adapt.
Gary, I want to touch on something with you specifically. I mean, you had talked about how you had found, you knew what your strengths were and what your weaknesses were when you started 122 West. And we actually talked about this when we did the startup spotlight, right? When you guys had just launched.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think a lot of business owners don't have a history in, and obviously Jason, you have this as well, is the background in finance. And tell me a little bit more about, like, you've got a vision, but you also have a background in finance. So in a time like this, I mean, you are the master weatherproofer, right? It might not pan out perfectly with every opportunity, like, how 122 West was, you turn it around. But tell me a little bit more about how your background in finance has really prepared you for whatever comes at you financially, really.
Well, I think everyone should take some preliminary finance classes. I mean, I've talked about this for years with my friends, even in high school. I mean, personal finance should be something that everyone is required to have as part of life, right? So, but having a background in finance and being in banking, if it comes to like the decision of discounting beers, fortunately, it didn't take me long to figure out, all right, what can I sell these beers for? How much do we produce them for? Just understanding the costs and what we were doing, and then being able to figure out, that we can make that work. Of course, it's going to be a lower margin, but we're going to, hopefully we'll increase our beer sales, which we did, to be honest with you, at a much greater rate than I anticipated. But it just gives you the ability to, look and understand your numbers. And, if you have to, as a business owner, if you're having to bounce that off someone or wait for your bookkeeper, your accountant to get you information, versus just being able to log into your accounting software yourself and figure it out, I think that hurts you as a business owner. So, if you're considering starting a small business, take some finance classes. There's plenty available at local community college, but at least have some basic concept of what, your profit and loss and your balance sheet are. And the less you have to depend on something on that side of things, I would argue is in the long run going to make you a more successful business owner.
Well, and how much of that?
It?
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. What?
I said, can't you just YouTube that?
Yeah.
All right.
Kidding.
Gaining understanding is always going to be important. Yeah.
How much of risk taking, right, as business owners is confidence in yourself, confidence in others? And I mean, is it something that you're taught? Are you just taught how to say, you know what, I'm going for it. I'm going to discount growlers 50%, or Jason's going to just go for it. What is that, something that's taught, or is that something that you are innately born with and hone over the course of the years? Tell me about that it factor of just like, you know what, I'm going to take a risk. I mean, you're already taking risks by being business owners, right? But then there's even bigger risks. You don't stop taking risk. Every decision you make could be a potential risk, right? How do you tell me more about, is that a thing that you're just born with, or are you taught that? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's taught per se. I do think you could probably get better at it. But I do think it's one of those things where you just got to figure out what your risk tolerance is. And I do think over time, if, bigger risks sometimes do have bigger payoffs, and that might make you a little more excited, or, make you a little easier to make risks. But, I think I've got a pretty high tolerance for risk. I like to think most of my risk is fairly based on numbers, and, it's educated risk. So I'll look, similar to Gary, I'll look at the numbers, I'll figure out our margins, and then it's like, okay, well, let's just give this a go, and I think this is going to work out. And it's fun because my wife is also heavily involved. She does all our bookkeeping and she is a finance major as well. But her risk tolerance is really low, and mine is extremely high. And it's a good balance because I'll be like, well, let's just do this. Or like, honestly, right now we're spending a lot of money. Like we're updating our patio and, cans, label design, all that costs a lot of money. And so it's like, we're putting a lot of money in knowing that it's going to pay off in 2 to 3 months. And so, or hoping it's going to pay off in 2 to 3 months. And so, a lot of those decisions I make, and then my wife later tells me that, maybe that wasn't, or she looks at the books and gets nervous, and then we work it out. I think there's a lot of risk in any sort of business, and you kind of have to just go for it. But hopefully you're doing it in such a way that it's not just blind.
Yeah. So educated, you're talking about you can have a high risk tolerance, but don't just be a doer. You got to find a healthy balance between thinking and doing, right? And I know that sounds like so cliche and so obviously, but there's a lot of people out there that are just thinkers. And then there's people out there that are just doers, and doers, what you're saying, kind of rely on luck, rely on things just falling in the right place. So having a good balance of, okay, what's the risk? What's the margin? What's the, taking the time, but then being able to act quickly, being able to look at the data quickly and then act quickly, not just sit there forever and miss your opportunity, truly, right?
Yeah, totally. I love making risks as long as I know the majority of the potential outcomes, I guess. So it's like, I'll look and be like, okay, if I fail, this is what will happen. And I typically will just I'm okay with the failure option before I take the risk, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Super smart, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to know that, we're spending a bit of money too, upgrading the kitchen. The can seamer was, $2,600 plus, all the stuff that goes with it. And you just, $2,600, whether you think that's a lot of money or not, when you're not earning revenue, it's a chunk of change. So, but through my head as well, okay, fine. If it doesn't work out, there's a huge market for can seamers right now. I could probably sell it for what I paid for it. So there's probably not much risk involved in that particular purchase. But, that's what I'm definitely with Jason. Anytime I'm taking a risk, I'm looking at, all right, if I totally screwed the pooch on this decision, how bad off am I going to be? Am I going to be out of business, or, is it going to be a financial hit? Where's the, what happens? And I think knowing that going into your decision-making process gives you a lot of clarity on whether you're going to do it or not.
Yeah. Love it. Gents, thank you so much for joining me today on the Pivot Series. You guys are all inspirations to me. I love seeing what you guys are doing. Thank you for Evan and Dakota for joining us again and being that brand builder for other people, especially for the craft beer community right now. Jason and Gary, thank you so much for being lights in our community. We so much appreciate your resilience in continuing to try to create community around craft beer as the centerpiece. So for those of you that are watching, and if you live in Bellingham and have not had craft beer, which I don't think that would be many people, you got to go check these guys out. I mean, you have to go into 122 West. It's an awesome location, just right over there, actually, by Cascade Pizza.
Fountain District.
And
they're redoing the fountain right now. It's going to be awesome.
Beautiful. I mean, there's so much about Bellingham that's growing right now in a positive way. And so go check out 122west.com. You can find them on Instagram, Facebook. I mean, they're constantly doing stuff on there. Check out Stemma, at Stemma on Instagram, Stemma Brewing .com. Everything will be in the message below. And obviously, if you guys have any questions about anything Stemma or 122 West, you can reach out to them. And if you love craft beer, or if you just like watching videos that make you feel awesome, that hit you right in the heart, you got to go check out Pollock Pictures and Huntley Motion and Brewingham. Do you guys have a release date? I know we talked about this, a target release date.
Our original target release date was September 2020, but with movie theaters and everything going to be kind of roughly opening up, maybe 0.5%, we really want to give this the credit it deserves. We've been working on it for so long. It's we really don't want to have open it up to a very limited kind of, restricted release. And so we are kind of weighing it out. We're still editing and factoring in how COVID fits into this story. And so like, we really wanted to get this out there September, during the Oktoberfest area, during the hop season and everything, but we're reconsidering how this affects our story, and also having a secondary of April 2021 because of everything that's gone on. And then on top of that, it will pair well with Bellingham Beer Week 2021, saying that we have a Bellingham Beer Week 2021.
For Brewers Day maybe next year?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we're kind of thinking. If that's what it comes to, we're okay with that, because we're going to pair it with a bit, the big weekend of 2021. We're going to be there. We're going to be ready for people to join in and be a part of that Bellingham Beer Week scene. So we're plan A, still September 2020. Unlikely at this point, just because of the current climate of things still being continually shut down or postponed. But more realistically, 2021, April 2021 will be our officially open and ready for people to see it date.
So here's the deal. For those of you that are watching, go order beer. Support our local brewers, support our local breweries. Get some great takeout burger. Takeout food. It's all there. And if you want to know what's going on and you don't want to just reach out to me about it, you can reach out to any of these people here that have been on the show, and you can ask them what's going on in your world, what's going on with new upcoming beer releases. So go check out the websites, go check out the social media, follow them, give them some love, go in, check it out. And thank you so much for joining us, all of you guys. Gary, what's up?
Hey, just a little plug for taptrail.com. It's got all the breweries and the cider houses on there. It's got some updated information. So if you're not familiar with all the breweries in Bellingham, taptrail.com is a pretty great resource for seeing what's out there.
Rad. And go.
I'm unaffiliated.
There we go. So it's just a great resource, it sounds like. And I'll put details on Tap Trail in the comments below. And then also, if you have a friend in need of a beer, go find Boozy Bear and tag your friend on Boozy Bear's page and get a Stemma or 122 West growler delivered or cans delivered. So lots of great opportunity to get some good craft beer here locally. Gents, thank you so much for joining me today on the Pivot Series.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, guys. Good to see you.
Cheers, you guys.